Thanks for downloading a 3CR podcast. 3CR is an independent community radio station based in Melbourne, Australia. We need your financial support to keep going. Go to www.3cr.org.au for more information and to donate online. Now stay tuned for your 3CR podcast.
Sabah al-Khair, good morning dear listeners. You're listening to Radio 3CR on 855 AM and Palestine Remembered with Nasser Mashni and Yusuf Ahmed al-Rimawi. I would like to welcome my listeners on the AM dial and those who will join us later on 3cr.org.au/podcasts. Thanks for tuning in to another edition of Australia's only radio program that is totally dedicated to the Palestinian struggle in English language. And in this episode we will talk more about the UN report on the apartheid in Palestine and more. So for this, stay with us and enjoy the episode. Good morning, Nasser.
Good morning, Yusuf. How are you doing?
I'm well, thank you. And I would like also to mention that Robert is not with us this week. He will be with us in a couple of weeks, maybe.
We should mention that our international Palestine Remembered correspondent is in Washington.
Yes.
Protesting the APAC, America-Israel.
Yeah, the American-Israel APAC, Public Affairs Committee. The lobby.
The Israel lobby in the United States. So he's there in Washington in solidarity with those activists protesting.
And he better come back with good interviews. Otherwise we'll rethink his contract. So what do we have today, Nasser?
I think we should just continue to talk about that very impressive UN report that they published following our apartheid show, number
Absolutely.
one.
Yep.
So we want to take credit for that.
I also really want to say that this has been one of the greatest knowledge-based legacies that we activists or pro-Palestine or any supporter of the Palestinian cause can have, because it talks about figures, it talks about facts, it talks about statistics, and it leaves very, if any, room for the apologists.
It leaves no room. It leaves no room. And we're going to talk about Rima Khalef and her resignation following the publication of this report and the pressure she was under from the Secretary General and the pressure he got.
Let's start from scratch for those who don't know about the report. The report was released 2 weeks ago.
Yes.
And it is by a UN body in West Asia
called the Economic and Social Commission for Western Asia.
And it clearly states that Israel is an apartheid, has maintained.
Correct. That it is guilty of practicing apartheid in Israel-Palestine, A, and B, most importantly for activists like ourselves, it actually pressures world governments to hold Israel to account and says that we should boycott, divest, and sanction this country, rogue state, until it complies with international law. So one of the things, interestingly, about the report, and Israel, we keep talking about Israel wanting to be legitimate. It wants to be New Zealand, Canada, Australia, another one of these colonialist outposts that is normal in the eyes of the world. But when you get into the report, Israeli apologists, they're very desperate to move the question and discussion about Zionism and it being a racist ideology away, yeah? So everything is about Israel being a democracy, Arabs get to vote, but let's not talk about Zionism. Yeah? And we know what Zionism is. In fact, it is racism, as the United Nations decided in 1975, UN Resolution 3379. that was repealed later on, we know, and I'm happy to talk about the reasons they were pressured to withdraw it.
For the same reason that they are pressured to withdraw this current report.
Absolutely. No question.
But like you said, Zionism is racism.
Zionism is racism. And the report talks about apartheid and it being there, but it also talks about the essential racist character of the state. And this is the fundamental failing of this. And I want to quote this, just a paragraph from the report. It says, Israel has designed its domestic governance in such a way as to ensure that the state upholds and promotes Jewish nationalism. The term Jewish people in a political Zionist thought is used to claim the right to self-determination, the quest of an ethnic or racial group for its own state amounts to a national project. And so Israeli institutions designed to preserve Israel as a Jewish state are referred to in this report as Jewish national institutions. And one of the most marked contributions within this report, and it talks about the Israeli Lands Authority, the IRA, and it's charged with the responsibility of administering the land in accordance with the JNF, the Jewish National Fund's covenant, which requires that all land be held into perpetuity for the Jewish people. Now, that means that if you are a Palestinian, your village is now part of the state of Israel that you were ethnically cleansed from. That land has been seized by the state, given to the Jewish National Fund, and from that to the Israeli Lands Authority. And the ILA operates within the World Zionist Organization Charter, and its sole job is to hold that into perpetuity. 93% of the state of Israel, as it is within the Green Line, is exclusively for Jews. So 20% of the Palestinians who live within 20% of the population of the state of Israel is Palestinian, as we know. 1/5 of the population.
That will be Muslim, Christians, Druze, Arabs in general.
Everyone who celebrates God on Friday, Sunday, or chooses not to celebrate God, who doesn't do it on Saturday, are precluded from purchasing, participating in, living on,
even though they hold Israeli citizenship.
Well, in this democracy, they get to vote.
You would think.
But they can't access those lands. So the report talks about that. And when you extrapolate what that report is talking about, intrinsically it's saying that Zionism is racism. Let's not talk... Okay, apartheid's been going on, as we know, since word dot, in the state of Israel.
Nasser, before you go on, I want to just, on the issue of JNF, mention that they hold a gala dinner every year in Melbourne, and I think also in Sydney, where they raise fund to this particular project, to the Jewish-only projects that excludes indigenous Palestinians.
Yeah.
And we seem to be participants in that somehow, because we're talking about Australian dollars that are tax deductible.
Yeah.
And the Zionists, whether from the members of the Jewish community of Australia or not, choose to go there and actually raise fund for this racist project.
They raise tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions of dollars that should be part of the Australian economy. That money is sent from Australia to Israel, a first world country, made the desert bloom, all of those lies that they keep perpetuating about the state of Israel. That money leaves the Australian economy. These Australians who make a donation to the JNF get a tax deduction, so further money removed from the economy to procure lands in the state of Israel for the sole use of Jews into perpetuity. And we've got to remember, one of the great projects of the JNF is what they do is they plant trees over the ruins of Palestinian villages in an endeavor to wipe the memories of the land from the indigenous people, to remove them, any trace of them, and to hide the crime from their own constituency. And those forests, JNF forests, are named after Zionist visionaries, like the John Howard forest, and the Harper forest from Canada. These are, Australian, Canadian,
the strongest supporters of Israel.
Just former prime ministers of Australia and Canada, and members of colonialist enterprises themselves, who have had forests named after them for their support of the wonderful work of the State of Israel.
And it doesn't take a Palestinian to just refuse that. I mean, anyone with common sense, with the minimum level of definition of justice, should not accept that.
Well,
you have taken over the land, you have kicked out the owners of the land, and you denied them entry, and now we're entering the 70th year of that, and you have changed the name of the place, and you built on the ruins of their memory and deserted, and on their memories and on their lands, and you're giving it another name,
and
with international money.
Well, international money. The JNF has a tax deductibility status in all of the Western world. It's not just Australia that's complicit. The JNF is tax deductible in England, in the United States, South Africa. I mean, all of these are bastions of colonialism. No, it's a sin, and we should. The Australian
It's a very important topic. We will definitely elaborate on JNF later. But back to the apartheid report.
Well, so coming back to that, one of the things that we constantly fight against, and as humanists and activists, it's very important for us to differentiate and delineate the difference between Zionism, which is a racist ideology, a sickness, as apartheid was, and as the Jim Crow laws of south in the United States, Zionism, the sickness, and Judaism, which is a religion.
Of course.
It's very important.
And we don't need to remind our listeners that lots of Jews from within, whether Israeli Jews or non-Israeli Jews, are standing up against this level of racism. And when we talk about JNF, I want to talk about a project that was led by South African Jews to basically travel the world and talk to the Jewish community about the danger of supporting JNF.
Yep.
And about the deceit that they are going through by doing so. And that was led and implemented and championed purely by Jews.
Yeah. I mean, look, Zionists are endeavoring to conflate the two. For a real Zionist, what they want to do is say, if you're anti-Zionist, you're anti-Semitic. And if they conflate the two, they can marginalize the activist, put you in a box and say, well, you're obviously a racist because you're an anti-Semite, because you're an anti-Zionist. No, anti-Zionism is a human right. Is in fact a human duty, not a human right, it's a duty. Anti-Judaism, that's anti-Semitic.
And that's totally unacceptable.
Condemn
that, yeah.
Absolutely. So we have to separate it, as we expect the state of Israel to be separated from Zionism. And even if Israel and the Zionists and the rabbis that support it and all of those Israelis support it, we won't. We don't accept it. Zionism and Judaism are two separate things. One of them is an ancient and beautiful religion, and the other is a curse on society.
A racist ideology.
Absolutely.
After the break, we will continue with the reaction of the report and the pressure by the UN Secretary General on the director of the West Asia Department of the United Nations, Rima Khalef, to withdraw the report. But after the song, stay with us. You're listening to Palestine Remembered on 855, and the song we are listening to is by a Syrian-Armenian singer, Faya Yunan, and it says, Binatna Bahar, between us there is a sea. So, Nasser, the report was released, and it had great echoes, I would say. We spoke about it, not knowing that it will have even greater echoes. because the UN Secretary General asked the makers of the report to withdraw it. What happened, Nasser?
Well, you remember, Yusuf, a couple of weeks ago, we actually predicted this. One of the realities, if you come out strong for Palestine, one thing that's certainly going to happen is you're going to be told off, and there's going to be a consequence to this action. God forbid you should be a human. Rima Khalef, in fact, resigned. She was put under pressure to withdraw the report, and Reuters reports that she took the step, quote, after what she described as pressure from the Secretary General to withdraw a report accusing Israel of imposing an apartheid regime on the Palestinians. I resigned because it is my duty not to conceal a clear crime, and I stand by all of the conclusions of the report. As we know, the report concluded that Israel was an apartheid regime, and it finds beyond reasonable doubt that Israel is guilty of policies and practices that constitute the crime of apartheid.
It's like, as if we need a report to call occupation, or to call apartheid. However, when that happens, they make it sound like absurd, the fact that there is some such thing, and the Israeli delegation to the United Nations are referring to Rima Khalef as an anti-Israel activist.
Anti-Israel activist, yeah. So Danny Danon, Israel's UN ambassador, said, the attempt to smear and falsely label the only true democracy in the Middle East by creating a false analogy is despicable and constitutes a blatant lie. And Nick Haley, the US envoy, she said, the United States is outraged by this report. The United Nations Secretariat was right to distance itself from the report, but it must go further and withdraw the report altogether. I mean, this is on the back. Trump announced new budget measures, and one of those things includes sweeping cuts to the US budget and to the UN budget. And if you remember, we spoke a couple of weeks ago about the power the United States exerts over the UN and its agenda by choosing when and how much and what program it will facilitate and pay for. And the saddest thing is that the pressure to force Khalef to resign or to withdraw the report means that this new Secretary General has already kowtowed to the powers and influence. He's already been obedient as he's supposed to be.
It's not like I had hopes, but we knew nothing about what his position would look like, and that gave us really not a signal. It gave us the reality of how his term would look like.
Well, what he said is that I'm going to be the good house boy, and what you need me to, how high do you need me to jump? And that's the saddest thing. Look, from the Palestinian side, the BDS National Committee, the BNC, condemned, obviously, the UN withdrawing the report, but congratulated the report in itself. And the statement was, the Palestinians are deeply grateful to Director Rima Khalef, who preferred to resign in dignity than to surrender her principles to US and Israeli bullying. And for that, she should be commended.
Also, I want to mention the reaction from the Arab from within, being a person whose first language is Arabic, and I have seen the great reaction from the Palestinians, the Jordanian, because Rima Khalef is Jordanian, and she used to be in the cabinet, the Minister for Education previously. And it was really great to see the Arabs united in a time of division, whether regardless of your internal politics, people were united in congratulating Rima Khalef for this.
Well, it's a principled stand, dignity.
And also the Mahmoud Abbas, the president, decided to give her the highest, honor? The highest honor for standing up to the Israeli apartheid. And I also want to say that this gave us a little bit of hope in the semi-government Arab level, that we are, after we have nearly lost hope in any official or semi-official support, especially in a time of division these days. So what Rima has done is really great, and it gave us hope, and we hope that it will continue to.
Well, there's an argument sometimes, in protesting, you actually highlight things more than they would have been highlighted. That in fact, if they'd left the report and didn't even talk to the report, the Americans and the Israelis, in fact, a day later or 2 days later, it's just a report that Yusuf and Nasser are talking about on a Saturday morning, as opposed to what the Secretary General called this Under Secretary General and said, pull the report. you've got to pull the report. I'm not pulling the report. You have to pull the report. If you make me pull the report, I'll quit. Well, you have to quit then because the report's gone.
And she did quit.
And she did quit. That level of intervention, it speaks volumes to the power of the lobby.
And if you're absolutely right, Nasser. The stupidity of...
Nobody would have seen the report except for me and you.
And thank you very much for that. And maybe
Robert. Maybe Robert. But what it's done is, aside from the contents of the report, somebody who's got no interest at all goes, what's all this going on at the UN? What are they talking about? Let me see the report. And it validates what we've been saying. Maybe they've been hearing it as grey noise in the background, but now they go, this grey noise. And here we've got an Under Secretary resigning because she's been told that she's got to withdraw a report that she authored. And maybe there's some validity. I should have to do some independent research to see what's going on.
And if you saw the press conference that she gave her resignation in, it was in Beirut, and on the panel next to her there was Lebanese figures in the media, Talal Suleiman, the editor-in-chief of As-Safir newspaper, the pro-Palestinian paper in the 70s and 80s, who we've never seen him for a while, so it was good to see him back.
Good to see him again.
And so it gathered the momentum that we nearly have lost.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm talking about.
It's very polarizing.
The ruins of the pro-Palestine voices from within the official and semi-official Arab regime was manifested on that resignation. And even you could visualize it in the press conference. And I also want to congratulate her for her excellent Arabic language capacity. She delivered a zero-error speech. Well done, Rima.
Fantastic.
Nasser, I believe there's also another important update we want to talk about this morning.
Yeah. No, great news. As we know, Israel has not only sieged Gaza, but it wants to isolate it even further. So people who are doing good work, humanitarian work in Gaza, we've got to, as Israel, destroy that. And a year or so ago, they imprisoned and tortured a World Vision, Australian charity, World Vision Gaza employee, Mohammed al-Halabi, and accused him of siphoning something like $50 million from funds that were destined to charitable works, and he diverted them to Hamas and built tunnels and all sorts of stuff. Reverend Tim Costello, he said, well, we've only ever given them like 10 million. I don't know how he siphoned 50 million off. But don't let the truth get in the way of a good Israeli story, of course. DFAT has done an internal review of the world funding into Gaza and has found nothing to suggest any diversion of government funds to aid Hamas. So the Australian government, DFAT, has exonerated him. That doesn't mean that he's free, obviously, because the Israelis put Mr. Halabi into solitary confinement last year when he gave an unauthorized interview to the ABC for a week. So
wow.
We're thankful that they've cleared
in a fair world, we should see a similar investigation committee for the money funneled from Australia to Israel via JNF.
Yeah.
You think one day
well, they should do that, yeah.
Justice will prevail?
Well, we can hold our hands out. I mean, look, hold our hopes up. One of the realities, all that being said, I mean, DFAT has still said that the funding should remain suspended. I sponsor 6 kids. Our family sponsors 6 kids through World Vision Orphan Sponsorship Program in Gaza. And so the money that we've sent has been, held into a quarantined account. They won't be releasing it anytime soon. But look, fingers crossed that justice will prevail and Mr. Halabi will be set free.
Is there any...
Just very quickly, I know we're getting very into the show. Where the Irish Republican Army and their struggle for independence from colonialism was very, very closely paralleled to the PLO struggle for Palestinian...
struggle for freedom and justice.
Yeah, absolutely, for self-determination.
For decades.
For decades, absolutely. The PLO and the IRA were so linked and so marginalised. We were so proud when the IRA and Sinn Fein won their freedom. One of the heroes of the IRA, Mr. Martin McGuiness, passed away today, so we honour his memory and wish him to rest in peace. And as Palestinians, we remember Bobby Sands. We cried when Bobby Sands died, as the Irish did when Yasser Arafat died. So we want to honour Mr. McGuinness's memory, and may he rest in peace.
Absolutely, and this gives us... This takes us to the time where PLO was a synonym of any international struggle for justice. This tells you that the Palestinian cause is not a domestic cause. You can't be an advocate for peace and justice in Ireland without supporting the Palestinians, because it goes down to the same principle:
Absolutely.
anti-colonialism and freedom.
And the same parallels into West Papua, into Kashmir, and the rest of the indigenous people denied their right to self-determination.
I also would like to end the program by asking our listeners to send their questions if they have to us. They can send it by mail to 21 Smith Street, Fitzroy. All they need to do is to just write their questions, or they can also send them by email to our.dome. That's my personal email, our.dome, D-O-M-E, @gmail.com. And we will be gladly willing to answer, if not in the coming week, the one after.
And just visit our website, which is still under construction, but 90% of the way there, palestineremembered.org.au.
Thank you all for being with us. This is another edition of Australia's only radio program that is totally dedicated to the Palestinian cause in English language. And do tune in next Saturday, 9:30 in the morning. Until then, have a great time and salam.
You've been listening to a 3CR podcast produced in the studios of independent community radio station 3CR in Melbourne, Australia. For more information, go to allthews.3cr.org.au.